customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DeJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you are a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution podcast with John DeJulius. This week, John talks with author Katie Maris about her book, CustomHer Experience, the importance of tailoring your brand experience to the female consumer. In this episode, you'll learn how to better understand the female consumer, how to transform the transactional service a woman receives into an interactional experience she'll crave, how to adjust your approach when interacting with customers, what the differences are between men and women, why an organization should look at her experience differently, and where an organization should start when developing an experience for her. Now here's your host, John DeJulius.
Welcome, revolutionaries, to another episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. Today, we have a longtime friend of the DeJulius Group, best-selling author, Katie Maris. Katie, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And oh my gosh, John, I can't sing your praises enough. Longtime friend doesn't summit. You are a longtime mentor of mine, and I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for you. So this is an honor.
Well, thank you. But today is about you. You have just written the best-selling book, CustomHer Experience, the importance of tailoring your brand experience to the female consumer. Katie, tell our audience why you wrote this book.
Well, I wrote it because I had a really awful car buying experience. And, with that, I went in with my kids, and every single sales associate avoided me like the plague as they ran around and jumped in and out of vehicles. Finally, a sales associate, after about 22 minutes, came up to me and said, "Ma'am, is your husband here?" And I was like, "What? No, he's not. So I'm going to be leaving now." And I went to 7 different dealerships. So I got anywhere from, "Is your husband here? Are you old enough to buy a car? Do you have enough money?" And every single workaround you could imagine to not serving me as the female consumer. With my customer experience background, I was floored. But then I started going down the rabbit hole of, well, does she really get treated well? And research after research shows that she is the most dominant force in the consumer world. She actually influences 86% of all household purchases and controls and influences $43 trillion of worldwide spending. And in a lot of organizations and companies, she's overlooked. So
and
I saw
she is the female consumer, correct?
The female consumer, yes.
And let's repeat that. Did you say 83% of the decision making?
86.
86%.
Yes.
Yeah, and represents how much in
$43 trillion of worldwide spending.
Wow. And so it's your finding, which I could see, that she, the female consumer, is neglected in most retail environments?
Yes, correct. She is neglected. And not even, we know that it's hard enough to get an organization to rally around creating a brand experience and a customer journey and brand standards, but they don't even take a look at who they're serving. And so I researched the physiological differences between men and women and why you buy, John, versus why I buy. And I help organizations now through this book. And if they, give me a call, to cast that experience net wide enough so they capture her and they don't lose out on her spending.
And I want to make sure our audience knows Katie has been doing this for, well over a decade as a customer experience consultant and a chief experience officer for some great brands. So this isn't something you just picked up and started doing.
No.
But let's get back to that. So tell me, let's use something, whether it's we need, a pair of shoes or an iPhone or whatever it is. And a man and a woman, not together, independent, what am I looking for?
Yeah.
What should the retailer be expecting, or how they deal with me, and maybe the buttons they need to push or avoid, versus when the woman, she walks in?
Yeah. So a man is looking for more of a utilitarian experience. I know what I want. I'm going to get in and I'm going to get out. So they want as least friction as possible. Do they want to be treated right? 100%. Do they want them to be called by their name? Yes. But they don't want the friction and the long drawn out conversations and all the details.
Easy and convenient.
Yes, that is the easy button. That is what men want. Now, women, on the other hand, want a hedonic experience, and that's an experience of the senses. So hedonic, yes, hedonic.
Is that something from Canada? I've never heard of hedonic.
No, you can look it up. But
why it should be called shedonic?
I love that. Maybe I'm going to coin that. Thank you. Hedonic experience.
All right, tell me about hedonic. What's that mean?
So the lighting in your brick and mortar, the sound, the smell, the temperature, the tone of your voice, the connection that they make with you. So a woman, when she's shopping, a lot will joke about retail therapy. A woman will say she's going out and doing some retail therapy. Well, there's some actual science behind that. So when she goes on her shopping experience with a company, a brand, an organization, she's actually having the same physiological reactions happening within her as when she's falling in love. So she has releases
endorphins,
dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, the bonding hormone. All of that is happening within her through the journey. So when we talk about a brand experience or a customer experience standards, that those touch points through time, that matters more for her than the actual purchase itself. And for a man, as I said, it's utilitarian. It's, I know what I want. Get me in, get me out. Let's press the easy button. The strings along the way or the steps along the way matter less to him than they do to her. And she actually wants that journey. That journey is what makes her fall in love with your brand. It makes her fall in love ultimately with your product, and that opens her wallet.
Yeah, and so to this, my spa business, right?
Yes.
When people say, what's your ideal customer? How I respond to that is I say, I want a Tesla driving, Lululemon wearing,
Yes.
Peloton riding, Starbucks drinking, Mac using customer, right? Yep. Because they're looking, less for a purchase, but more a connection to the brand. But also, and this is leading to a question, also whether it's an iPhone, right? A Tesla, the Lululemon logo on my shirt or joggers. Mm-hmm. That's sending off that I have resources, right? I'm hip, which, technically, hopefully translates to I'm more sexy and all those things that go with it, right? Is that different for a man and a woman, or is that still the same?
Well, that brand recognition, that is sort of like a person by person, I would think. Like it's really about if a brand matters to you, then you're going to wear it and you want that status. Yeah. I'd actually say status means more to a man than it does to a woman, believe it or not. But when it comes
but men are buying the $10,000 bag.
Louis Vuittons?
Yeah.
There are actually quite a few out there that carry them.
All right, so let me rephrase the question.
Yes.
If my business, anything, restaurant, retail, whatever it may be, how does it affect if I'm luxury, high end, or middle of the road, or cost conscious, whatever that is? Does that differ on attracting and keeping her?
No, it doesn't differ, because she's looking for as I said, the release of endorphins, the release of that dopamine. So she's looking for that genuine connection with the brand. So all the brands you mentioned, whether it's Lululemon, Apple, Tesla, I can't remember what other brand. But it's if you look at Starbucks, that was the other one, Nordstrom. If you look at those experiences they create across the board, all of those brands know how to attract and retain their female consumers. They all know how to get into her wallet space. So there is a correlation between those high-end, those brands, that customer that you want to attract, and the experience that they give in order to attract her.
Yeah, and I'll tell you from my own experience, and I haven't been involved in them in almost 20 years, but in the salons, obviously the female spends so much more, right? You're getting highlights, your nails and toes done, maybe makeup, brows, yada, yada, yada. Right. Yeah. So what a woman spends versus a man, a good male client maybe comes in every 3 weeks, but he's basically getting a haircut. So obviously the female, but in my experience, the one advantage of a male over a female, the male was always more loyal. Like you could literally nick his ear, give him a bad haircut, and they were like, they like you said, they like convenience, repeatability, habit. They don't want to have to think. And they just want to go to their barber, their hair salon. And I'm assuming this transcends to other places, even if they haven't had the best experience. Where women, you do anything, they could be gone tomorrow.
So a woman's limbic brain, which is the emotional and memory hub of your brain, a woman's limbic brain is almost double the size of a man's. So what she feels and what she remembers.
Size does not matter.
I've said that on your stage once upon a time. It actually does matter. It does matter. But it maybe not in all aspects. But no, it does matter in terms of the limbic brain. And her limbic brain tells her that she will. So, I mean, I love Claudia, but I'm sure you've got other women in your life that remember maybe an incident with you. I don't know if you have sisters, but
three.
Right. So if they remember a fight in grave detail or a disagreement in grave detail, like 5 years after it's happened and they bring it up, it's because they're physiologically meant.
Yeah, I don't remember the argument we had this morning. Like, exactly. Honestly, like I don't remember, and I don't know,
But we are wired to do that. So, if they have a service failure or a bad experience with a salon or any company or any interaction, they're going to remember that. And so if you're not putting positive deposits into that trust account with your female consumer, you're going to go into overdraft. And once you hit that overdraft, there is no coming back, because she will remember where they went wrong in grave detail from now till forever. And then, unfortunately, for the organization, she's the original social media. So she's going to go tell everybody that she knows in grave detail, because we love to talk in detail and share our stories. And now she's got the World Wide Web to do it.
Yeah.
So yes, women are not as loyal as men, because men like that easy button, that utilitarian.
Yeah.
Yet in a business like yours in the salon, if you don't have that loyalty, those chairs aren't being filled.
Right.
And they're not being rebooked.
Yeah.
And so therefore, you're losing a piece of that $43 trillion in the world that she influences.
So is that $43 trillion mostly retail?
No, it actually goes, it's retail, travel. So they actually,
I should say business to consumer.
Yeah, business to consumer.
Because I would think this would be less, maybe, and you correct me, business to business, right?
It would be less. And you know why? Because there's less females at the top.
Yeah, you're right. Which is a whole nother
conversation.
Yeah. All right. So my other question is, all right, so you talked, it sounds like, so let's say I'm a business to consumer leader out there listening. And yes, you're making me realize we kind of have a generic experience as far as versus women versus men. And I need to up my game or do an audit on, if I have the right senses and stuff. So it sounds like, there's a lot to this, right? Branding, right? Marketing, what signals, it's kind of like the guy going into the bar, right? What signals is he sending off, that would get him, to the 9s and 10s versus, whatever else it may be there.
Yes.
Okay, so
I
really
assume that's easy at that point. No.
What's that?
I said where size really won't matter at that point. No, I'm joking.
Right.
People don't come out of college with a CXO degree. That's why the Customer Experience Executive Academy was created. When you're tasked with designing, leading, and managing the customer's experience, there's a lot at stake. We know you want to make a difference in your organization, and we also know how difficult it is to do that when you aren't sure what to tackle first. The Customer Experience Executive Academy gives enrollees the tools to efficiently create an impact as a customer experience leader. Our graduates are taught a simple framework that allows them to create customized solutions within their business. You'll implement systems throughout the year-long program while learning and sharing best practices with your fellow classmates. For details on how you can enroll, contact Claudia at thedejuliusgroup.com or schedule a call at tdg.click/Claudia.
So that marketing, branding, we want to make sure we're sending out the triggers that would attract, and say, this is a brand I want to do business with. Can you give me an example of what that could look like?
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head, though, when you said most organizations are creating an experience that's sort of overarching men, women.
Yeah.
And then when you said we have to do an audit. And so that's where, a lot of the questions I get organizations they're terrified. Leaders are terrified. Well, what? I have to start all over again and I have to create a whole new experience? And no, but you do have to take an audit of your current experience and break it down by touch point, by, moment through time that she is interacting with you, and take a look at each area. So you have to look at the atmosphere. You have to look, so your lighting, your heat, your sound, your employees' tonality, and all that fun stuff. And at each touch point, you need to make little minor adjustments. So if you're interacting with the female, you'll overall arching, you want to make sure that the lighting is correct. If you're in a retail space and you've got mirrors, are they at the right level? Is the seating comfortable? Is it laid out right? So overarching as an experience, you need to take a look at the whole thing. But at each touch point, you just need to add in the little bits of, I guess, I love it, the shedonic, the little bits of shedonic into each touch point. And so what that
now, how do you know that won't turn off heat?
Through my research, men, although they want an in and out experience. So I believe that when you design your experience, you should design it for him, utilitarian. That's the basics. And a woman would be turned off by that way too. She doesn't want friction either.
Right.
But then once you do that and you've got your processes, your operational standards, the non-negotiable standards that get done, once that's established and you want to create an experience, during that experience audit, you need to he doesn't care as much, but she does.
So he won't notice that the mirrors are low. And the woman won't notice where the mirrors are, but her senses are going to be, more attracted
Exactly. But she will notice if they are off.
Yes.
She will notice that. She won't notice if you're doing it right, but she will notice if it's off. And if it's off, she'll leave.
Right.
So I always take, we talk about, and you've taught me this about consumer personas, about breaking down your customer persona. Well, a woman needs those personas too. And unfortunately, or fortunately, the consumer persona that are standards today don't work for women. And the reason why is, 30s are the new 20s, 40s are the new 30s, so on and so forth. Women aren't getting married till they're in their 30s and 40s. They're not having kids. If they are, it's usually later in life. But there are still women out there that are traditional and getting married early, right out of college, and having kids. So I urge individuals and companies to create a consumer persona for her that's life stages. So instead of looking at a certain name or persona that you build with an age group, it's life stage. So, is she single? If she's single, what are her wants, needs, fears, desires, so on and so forth?
Yep.
If she's going from me to we and she's, getting married, her needs change drastically, and how she spends money. Maybe she's going to have a mortgage, so they're going to be a little tighter on her spend. If she's, married and she's just having kids, well, now how she's shopping is completely different. She's looking at every label. She's looking at all the ingredients. She's got a mom mode has been put on. Then she's got school age kids, which is super busy, and she's got no time for herself. So that spa trip that she's taking, that's a big deal.
Yeah,
she's actually taking time out, and that hedonic experience better exist for her, or else she's not coming back.
Right.
And then, you go from kids are out of the house. So now her and hubby or herself, they're, trying to figure each other out, but they've got more free time. So maybe they'll frequent, the spa a little more often. And then you're retired and you've got more money than you've worked your life where you are. So you're spending differently, and your wants, needs, fears. So I urge organizations to look at her through her life stage, which would help them really depict what type of hedonic experience or elevated experience they need to provide her.
I love that. And it's so funny. Like, I taught this in a similar way, but not obviously our clientele in the spa was all around she.
Yeah.
But I used to, when we get new employees that got promoted onto the floor and had no clientele yet, I'd say, all right, and I put up, 5 segments, 18 and under, 19 to 25. And again, this is, dated 15, 20 years ago. Today, these numbers would slide up towards 30, right? From 25, to your point. What was it? 25 to 35. 35 to 50, and let's say 50 or 55 and above. So I'd say, all right, let me ask you something. If I had a machine, now, Katie, you just are going on the floor as a hairdresser, you have no clients. Obviously, you want to make a lot of money. If I have a machine in the back room that could mass produce you your clientele, female or male, obviously most hairdressers say female, right? I'd say, okay, what do they do for a living? And, they'd say, typically professional female or stay-at-home mom, which I don't know how many there are of that anymore. Right. So they had to pick one, professional female, and then I'd ask the age group. And they all said 25 to 35. Yeah. So I said, you're going to go out of business if you do that. And so then I went into the dynamics. 18 and under is actually a great segment because of 2 things. One, they have their parents' credit card.
Yeah, I was just about to say, mom is paying for that.
Mom is paying for that, and there's usually no limit, which is horrible parenting. Which I've been there, I've done that, and that.
I do it too. I've got a 16-year-old. I do it all the time.
Right. The other thing that 18-year-olds have that we all lose as we get older is the popular high school girl, cheerleader, whatever, prom queen. She's a rainmaker. And for those who don't know, a rainmaker is a big influencer. Yeah. And if young Katie at 18 gets highlights, everyone else wants highlights, so they're asking her where. As we get older, our influence shrinks. We're not hanging out with, the masses. And Katie at 18 versus Katie at 38 isn't, going out and seeing 100 people there saying, oh my God, where'd you get your hair done like you did at 18? I said, then at 19 to 25, they're in college and getting out of college, and they're looking for, I hope I'm not going to piss off anybody, but they're looking for 2 things at 18 to 25. What are they?
They're looking for, to be accepted in the workplace. So they need to make a job. Yeah.
And Katie, you're, I don't even know what young girls would wear, but whatever you were doing at 19 or 20 isn't going to get you a job anymore, right?
It's not going to get you a job.
You need a professional salon to make sure whatever. No, that blue hair, the spiked hair isn't going to work. So a job, and what else are we looking for typically at that age?
Well, a man.
Yeah. Right?
Husband.
So we want to, we will invest in our time. Again, this thing probably has moved from 25 to 35 to probably 30 to 40 now. Yeah. But back in the day, I said 25 to 35, who everyone picked that they wanted was the least, because now typically during that time frame, they're getting married. they
Yeah.
are got married, and they're having kids, and they have a house, and their looks are at their peak, right? But they are
Yeah.
26, 27, 28, 29, and whatever. You don't need a salon, for anything. You don't have grays. Your skin is great. Nothing is caught up with you. Yada, 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 mistakes. And I'm sure this is this exact same for men. But all your time, money, and resources are going to the wedding, going to decorate the house, going to put the whatever cutest clothes on your kids. Right.
Yeah.
So 25 to 35 back then was the worst because, it just wasn't your focus anymore. Now 35 becomes great because sometimes at 35 to 45, which is probably 40 to 50 today, they're, reemerging in a career, right? Their kids are in school and growing up and they need to do something. So they need to get that. And 50% of the time, they're looking for a new partner.
Yeah.
And so, and if they're not, right, then they have more discretionary income than they've ever had before.
Spending it on themselves.
Yes. And then the 55 and older, like you describe, is golden.
Yeah.
From a discretionary income, but also from an aging, they need, those services more. So it was always really interesting and real, the group that, people thought would be ideal. And I'm sure it changes depending on the type of business, but discretionary income is discretionary income.
100%. But here's the other thing about women, even as they mature and age, women actually influence 3 to 4 generations of spending. So I'll give you an example. I got a phone call from my son's friend's mom. She just gotten home from the grocery store. And once upon a time, and this was about 2 years ago. And so it's been 2 years since I've spoken to her. I mean, COVID, all the things. But I used to have all the kids over every Friday and the moms. I'd make them dinner. I'd put them around the table and the moms would drink rosé on Friday afternoon and the kids would play and run rampant in my house. And she gave me a call and said, I was shopping with so-and-so. And she's like, he stopped me in the aisleway and pointed out an item that you used to serve him every Friday. And he asked me to buy it for him. So
it wasn't the wine, right?
No, it wasn't the wine. No, definitely not. But you think about the car that's parked in your driveway and you have your kids' friends coming up that driveway every single day. They see that brand. If you have your kids' friend, my fridge is their fridge. They open the fridge and they see all the brands that she buys. Right. And then you go further to that, her girlfriends, which is now social media. So while they might not be in high school, they have their friends at their fingertips. So they see what they're doing with their stories and their perfect posts and all the things.
Hold on here. I'm an empty nester. Okay. Yes. I think I have influence. If you go and open my refrigerator, right, you'll see Bud Light and, expired, cheese.
Yes.
Right. That's it. But come on, that sends a message.
That sends a message. It would be as bad as if that kid pointed out the rosé.
Right.
Yes. But she also influences for like my grandmother, for example, she's aging. And so I buy all of her groceries. And so all the brands that she now gets are brands I believe in. And my sister, when she has 2 small kids and, now she's cooking and doing all the things I did for them, she uses all the brands and does all the things that I used to, and I still do. I have this tradition. It's the birthday fairy. And so on the eve of my kids' birthdays, while they're sleeping, I decorate the entire house. And so the birthday fairy shows up and the Valentine's fairy shows up and all the fun things. So when they wake up in the morning and they come down the stairs, they're hit with this sort of like unexpected moment, the break of the script, and they have their own sort of experience. Well, my sister does that. And now my sister's friend does that because now my sister posts
it's kind of buying tradition.
You are with a woman. You're buying the tradition. You're buying what she believes in and the brand she believes in. Yeah. And so she actually, as I said, she may not influence all the little teenagers, because she's not that age anymore, but her reach is quite large.
That's awesome. All right, Katie, let me ask you how I'm going to have in the show notes a link to your book.
Perfect.
CustomHer Experience, The Importance of Tailoring Your Brand Experience to the Female Consumer, a best-selling book. And what else I want to put in there is how can people find you?
Yeah. So, I mean, every social platform, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, but they can email me, katie@katiemaris.com. And they can check out my website, katiemaris.com.
Okay. And Katie, I should know this, IE or just E?
IE.
KATIE.
Yeah.
At KatieMares.com. And that's also your website, katiemaris.com.
Got
and
it.
we'll have that in the show notes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any last parting, advice for our listeners on customizing her experience?
I mean, it's all about creating those relationships. So if you don't have employees that truly care genuinely about your customers, then you need to be looking somewhere else. So I would just say, let's start there and take a look at her, get the book, and really understand why she's so important. Because once you understand why she's so important, it's almost hard to not take those steps to tailor that experience to her.
What a journey, Katie. I'm so proud of what you've done and accomplished and where you're at today. How many years ago was it that I think you saw me speak and you were like, a young, and you're still young, but you were maybe, in
20
the
years, 20 years, John.
Yeah, you were
I'm
working
39. I was like 19.
Yeah,
when
that's what I thought. You were working for a shoe.
Shoes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you stayed in touch and reached out and, in a great way were persistent. And then you've
I had to work with you.
Yeah. You've been on main stage at the Customer Service Revolution. And now today you're crushing. You're a best-selling author. It's really, I couldn't be more proud of what you've accomplished.
That means the world to me. You have no idea how much you have shaped me and my career. So I'm super grateful.
Thank you, Katie. Thanks for being on. Great information, great book. And I want to thank all you revolutionaries for joining me for another podcast of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. And we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening in to this episode of the Customer Service Revolution podcast. I'm Denise Thompson, managing partner of the DeJulius Group, and I invite you to send us your questions, post a review, and let us know what you liked and want to hear more of. We're happy that you're part of the Customer Service Revolution and encourage you to subscribe now so you don't miss an episode. You'll find us on Spotify, iTunes, or your favorite podcast station.